My guest today is Alex Schlinsky, who is a founder of Prospecting on Demand. He's a heart surgery survivor and former UFC and Miami Dolphins media member. He has had a decades-long journey to building out a mastermind community for agency owners, coaches, and entrepreneurs alike to build a business that better facilitates their life. In today's episode, we talk about the power of intention and how to successfully create a life on your terms. Welcome to Lifeology.
James, thank you so much for having me, man. I love that intro. It makes me sound so cool. You know, that's excellent. I feel like I should just take that as a snippet and just put it up anytime I go anywhere. If I go to the bakery and order something, wait, hold on. You have to listen to this clip really fast. Here I am. Okay, now I will take the blueberry muffin. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, our mutual friend Corey Poirier introduced us. So I'm really glad and looking forward to hearing more about the show. Now, you, when I was reading a lot of stuff about your backstory, you had open heart surgery. What was that all about?
Yeah. So first off, I'm 31 years old now. I had surgery 2 years ago, October 15th. Pretty crazy how fast time goes. Good to be alive. Thank God. Very grateful for it. When I was 18 years old, after I graduated high school, I went to a normal checkup. And during the checkup, the doctor was kind of leaving the stethoscope on longer than usual, which was pretty concerning, as you can imagine, at 18. He ended up telling me that he's concerned about, a heart murmur that I had that was unfounded prior. Later to find out, after going to a cardiologist, that I had a slightly enlarged heart and my valve, my aortic valve, was incorrectly made. So I had a bicuspid aortic valve. Okay. Long story short, just means instead of opening up like a peace sign, it opened up in a semicircle. So it, had to work extra hard to get blood out of the heart. I went to a doctor who told me surgery was 100% inevitable. Basically 99% of people who are born with this congenital heart defect have to have surgery, but normally the age of surgery is around 55 to 70. So just live your life. Everything's good. Hard to get that news at 18 and then just live your life.
Of course, live your life. Yeah.
It's hard to do that. 10 years after that, I ended up being told by a doctor, when I was 29, that I would have to have the surgery now, which was alarming considering I thought, I thought it was like 30 years away. But that's all about why we talk about the power of intention and why I think, I accelerated the path to having surgery. So I did have surgery October 15th, 2020. Terrible year, COVID plus heart surgery, not great. And to add it on, of course, because life loves throwing curveballs at you. My wife was pregnant with our first child, 5 months pregnant when I had my surgery. My son was born 117 days after my surgery. It's incredible, but it's amazing, James. It's like I have two birthdays. My original birthday is September 4th, but it's just pales in comparison to October 15th. That's truly, the day I was reborn. And when most people say they're like, oh, here we go, religious conversation. Not at all. That's not what it is. It's just the feeling of waking up after having that type of surgery and seeing your pregnant wife and then having a child. Man, it's something that's pretty special.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all that. That's wonderful. The person that I'm speaking with before the surgery and person afterwards, what's different and what's the same?
Oh man, so much has changed. So, the reason why I talk about the power of intention is when I was 18 and found out that I was going to have surgery, I think when you're that age and even, up to even 30 years old, I think if you've never had any sort of health scare, either in your family or for yourself, first of all, knock on wood, I'm super happy for you because that's a great thing. But it tends to be like, that's an everyone else problem. Like someone dies in a car accident, God forbid. And it's like, that would never happen to me. Right? Someone gets cancer, that would never happen to me. Someone has heart surgery, that would never happen to me. So when you're 18 and you have this invincibility complex for a doctor to tell you, hey, now you have a cap on your life, there's a very strong likelihood you'll have open heart surgery, which no matter what type of surgery it is, when someone says open heart surgery, there's, immediate feelings that you have about that, no matter how severe it is or not. It's really like a life-changing moment. So my thought process was now I need to really buy into working faster and harder than anyone else. So I became an ultra competitive person and ultra dedicated to creating legacy faster than I think most other people did. So I had, tried to create opportunities financially for both businesses I ran, which was my marketing agency for personal injury attorneys, working with the UFC or the Miami Dolphins, which was kind of more of a fulfillment thing than a money thing. And then ended up building my mentorship program, Prospecting on Demand. But I was so bought into hustle culture. Like I loved listening to David Goggins, like screaming at the top of his lungs while he's running, or like Gary Vee telling you have to have a side hustle, like selling vintage toys, even though I have $1 billion company, or Grant Cardone yelling 10X. I was so invested in that. I think what I ultimately realized once I found out 10 years after the fact that I was going to have this surgery, that me putting the engine into red all the time, right? Like hustling consistently over and over and really buying into that actually accelerated my problems, because it created a lot of anxiety, stress, frustration. And I'm a very type A personality. I'm like a very aggressive personality. Like we watch a Miami Dolphins game and like I'm flying off the handle going crazy. I don't have any, family in the games, but it's as if like I'm the one playing. That's just the type of attitude that I have about, life in general. So when that happens, that's why I accelerated my heart problem. So after I had my surgery, especially when my wife was pregnant, when I'm in the operating room, before they wheel you in, they give you like a cocktail of drugs to get you calm. And then the surgeon walks up to you always before, and he's like, "Are you ready to go?" And obviously I'm not ready to go. This is a life-changing moment here. I'm nervous. Is this the last time I'm going to say goodbye to my parents, to my wife? Am I going to meet my son? And the doctor said something to me that was really impactful, very powerful. He said, "Alex, I'm going to take care of you. I promise you will meet your son." And that was the last thing that he said to me before they wheeled me in. And then, went to sleep. And I remember waking up and just, that was it. I got through it. And I think after that fact, after going through that, I just didn't want to be the same person I was prior. And the truth is, James, it's easy to be like, I completely changed and I'm totally anti-hustle and I really slowed down and I'm much more intentional. I think the reality is it's not feasible to just have a light switch moment. No. It takes time. It didn't just happen over time. It's 2 years later. I still think I have a lot of work that I have to do on becoming more serene, tranquil, having less anxiety. We moved out of the busy city into the suburbs with more space to keep that kind of mantra. We focused on taking time off more consistently to spend time with our child. And I'm focused on like the why instead of just consistently the next thing. I feel like in entrepreneurship, especially, people are always wanting more. You climb a mountain. As soon as you get to the peak of the mountain, you're like, there's a bigger mountain. You catch a fish and there's always a bigger fish to catch. And I think it's a never ending hustle until you're burnt out all the way, because you'll never find fulfillment. And so those are the things that have changed a lot about me. But in terms of, those are my core beliefs. In terms of my core actions, it really takes a lot longer than 2 years to change. So anyone that's listening to this and wants to buy into the anti-hustle model because you're kind of tired of hearing people scream you're not doing enough, you're not working hard enough, my life is better than yours, compare yourself to other people, just know like it's not going to magically change in 1 day, 1 week, even if you have some cataclysmic life event like having heart surgery. And having an umbrella of forgiveness and giving yourself a little bit of grace as you move towards it. Track your progress. I'm always trying to track my progress on, am I getting better? Am I getting one step closer? Because I have a natural tendency to be a wolf, James. That's who I am. Like I'm going to go hunting and I want to hunt, but I don't really want to be hunting all the time. I want to be a lap dog sometimes. I just want to be relaxed.
Exactly.
Sometimes. So that's what I'm working on. Those are the differences.
Congratulations. It's such an interesting juxtaposition between then versus now. And obviously we're, like you said, we're all on a journey to grow and continue to be the healthier version of oneself. I always, I'm sure you do this as well. I'm sure that's what you teach, is to create the quality of life. And so for me, I had a really successful practice in the Washington, DC area, psychology practice. And in 2015, I just gave it all up and I was like, I'm just tired of this. And so I gave it up and I started Lifeology. And so it's done really well. But that was something I did for me, but the prospect was creating, what does quality of life mean? So I had a lot of quality up there, but it just was different. And so I just was able to regenerate that and create this life. My concept of that is, just because I can make a whole bunch of money right now, if that's affecting my quality of life right now and the other widgets in my life, then I'm not going to do it. So when I think of it, I create quality of life now, but then I also conceptually create the quality of life in a year from now. And what does it look like when I'm with my spouse and our kids? What does that look like? When I get older, what legacy does it look like? And so as I continually create the quality of life with the different metrics I have now, and then use that moving forward, that same template. And I know it's going to change, of course, things I don't yet know, but things I do know, and I can use that template. I find that my life, just like I'm sure you do and what you teach, so much more fulfilled. I don't have that hustle. 100%. I'm not constantly up all night. I'm not, talking to this reporter or that reporter, unless it's appropriate for what the journey is that I have in the moment.
Yeah, I see so often people don't define their level of success, satisfaction, or happiness and then they will allow someone else to determine that for them, whether it's like a high level guru like a Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or Gary Vaynerchuk. And they'll try to live a lifestyle that they don't actually have intention on living, because they haven't actually just taken the time to be intentional about what they want. And the great thing of being an entrepreneur in general is having agency. And I don't mean a marketing agency. I mean agency as in choice. And the value of choice is often forgotten. Like it's the best thing about being an American, right? Like the value of living your life, having the ability to choose to do what you want to do, as long as it's within the confines that are illegal and such, but at the end of the day, like defining your win, your life is so important, and avoiding the mindset that anyone could tell you it's wrong, because people love to tell you that. They're like, oh, you only want to make $10,000 a month? That's wrong. Like, says who? What? Why? What's the case on that, right? Some people just want to be successful, or they want to be happy, or they want to have a lifestyle business, but then they don't define it and they wonder why they never feel that they've achieved it. It's like running a race without a finish line. You cannot win a race. You don't know what the stamina is. You never know when it's over. Having the finish line is so important. And I think there's a very important mantra related to hustle culture, that people are afraid that if they get to a finish line and they hit a peak, and they're afraid of contentment, they're afraid that being content will make you less than. And I feel like that's just a weak-minded version of someone being afraid to realize, like, it's okay to have space to live your life with just enjoyment. And you can always find that next race to run, but it doesn't just have to be a never-ending marathon. That's not the idea that I want. And that's really what I did for 10 years straight, until, life hit me in the face, which is like, hey, you have to have heart surgery, so maybe you should slow down.
Yeah. One way that, from a psychological approach, one way people can not necessarily slow down, but really enjoy the moment, is to literally use your five senses. So right now I'm sitting in Fort Lauderdale, beautiful day outside. It's, I'm sitting here, I have my AC on, all this is happening. So I can feel this, I can hear this, I can smell this, whatever. And so one way to really sit with that is, instead of getting so much in the hustle culture, is just really look at your environment, sit with your environment, use all your five senses as much as possible. And for those downtimes that you have, really enjoy that so much more, because in doing that, that's how you reset, because you're not constantly in your meetings, not constantly in your phone, not constantly checking the other things. So that's just a quick little life hack, is just simply try and engage all your five senses in the moment as much of the time as you can do it. Sometimes we forget all about the five senses. We know our sight and hearing, but we forget, if I want a piece of chocolate, it tastes really good. All that just allows me to sit present in the moment. And that's one way to just really disconnect from all the hustle mentality.
Absolutely agree. I think not enough people are willing to slow down. I coach sales a lot, James. That's one of the main things that I coach on a consistent basis. And one of the objections that salespeople get a lot is like, I need to think about it, because they're not prepared at that moment to make a decision. But the way that I frame back to handling that objection is allowing that person to think about it then. It's like, hey, if we scheduled 45 minutes to talk today and we're 30 minutes in, when was the last time you had 15 minutes to do nothing? To like actually think, right?
Perfect.
And when you portray that to someone, the reality is they probably don't have any time, right? They're stacking their calendars thinking they're being efficient, but just being a machine at all times is actually not efficient. You burn out quickly. That's what what happens to a car's engine. Like, we need rest and relaxation, and sleep is not enough. And even like we're talking about, the hustle culture wants to eat into your sleep. You're not waking up at 3 o'clock. You're lazy. You're not at the 4 a.m. club at the gym. You're lazy. This is, they want to, intrude upon every element. And my goal ultimately with what I coach is just try to stay away from that. Try to build your life so you can have time to really actually marinate on things, think through things, get clarity on what you want and how it works, instead of just living life on a roller coaster. It's not a roller coaster. It's okay to sit for a few minutes and just relax. And if you really have a hard time with it, meditation is such a great practice. Journaling is such a great practice. I struggle a bit, James, with meditation due to being ADHD, and I've just had a hard time with it for a long time. And sometimes I get into a good zone, but other times I just really struggle with it. Journaling has helped me so much. It's just been immensely powerful to just write out my thoughts onto a notepad, or written down, or typing it out. And it just really allows me to have space for clarity. And once you have clarity, that's where you can be in your pocket. That's where you can be your zone of genius and get the most out of life.
Yeah, let me piggyback off that as well. So when it comes to meditation, most people think, well, I don't have time to meditate. But anytime you think about something longer than you should, automatically you're meditating. And so one way to do that is, especially for people who have ADHD, is we have what's called a mindful meditation or moving meditation. Sometimes just going out for a walk. And once again, it's one of the big things I teach is your five senses. So when you're walking outside, when you're using your five senses, this is really cool as well, not to get too deep into the psychology of this, but when you're using your five senses and you're walking, so our feet are moving, I mean, not like this, but they're moving. And so when you move, you're using both sides of your brain. And so this is actually what's called, it's almost like it's almost like when you have lucid dreaming. So when you're dreaming at night and you're aware of the dream, you can control the dream. So when you're walking in this type of way, you're actually increasing your theta brainwaves. Trying not to get too technical here. But if you think about a problem you have and the pace in which you walk while you're using for your five senses and allow your mind to drift. So you start to think about something and it moves you all the way through to actually the base of what you're actually thinking. So sometimes you can be thinking about something here and next thing you're like, why am I thinking about it when I was a 5-year-old kid and I was playing with my dog? What happens is your psychology or your mind actually moves you all the way to the trail, to the foundation of what that is, which then gives you the insight of what you need to be able to process whatever you're dealing with. Because sometimes if we have an overreaction about something and we're like, what is this about? But doing something as simple as that, a moving meditation with your feet allows you moving both sides of your brain. It allows you to actually process some of those things. So that's one thing I always teach as well is the people who struggle with sitting still, a walking component, when you allow your mind to drift, when you think about a problem, will actually give you the insight you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What I found being really valuable for me is a sauna or a float tank. Both of those have been really valuable. I'm always looking for methods of self-care. For some reason, human beings punish themselves worse than any way you would punish a friend or a family member. Self-care is very, very important, and finding what's good for you and how to pamper yourself is absolutely key. I found saunas for me to be by far the most effective, like the detoxification of sweating it out and then like having absolute clarity and mental clarity after the fact is incredible. I kind of get freaked out being in a sauna a lot, so I try not to go very often. I'm like, is my heart valve going to melt? I have a mechanical heart valve inside, so I'm like, maybe I'm not going to do this a lot. The doctor's like, no, you'll be fine. I'm like, but do you know? Like, so I'm kind of sketchy usually with that. So I've been trying float tanks. And it's interesting. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you've done sensory deprivation, but it's an interesting thing. It is interesting. It creates a unique experience. So some things the listeners might want to try.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was just thinking about when you were talking about journaling. Another quick little life hack is you actually journal with your opposite hand, whether you can read it or not. You're actually accessing the other side of your brain. So for lack of better purposes, the left side is the intellectual side, the right side is the creative side. So if you actually switch them right from the opposite hand, whether you can read it or not, you actually think about the situation slightly different and you actually elicit a different response. So that's another way to kind of get through something if people are like, I don't know how to do this. So anyway, going back to the power of intention. With the power of intention, how do you use this every single day? How do you really make sure that as you incorporate this concept into your day? Yeah,
I think if I was to sit here and say that I use it every single day, I think I would be lying to you. I don't think I use it every single day because I'm ultimately imperfect. I think the times that I use it are very particular. For me, the most important power of intention is for anything that's extraordinary. And I know that's not how you say the word. It's extraordinary, but I like to separate the two words of what they are because extraordinary, I think, has a connotation that it has to be something like very, very different than the status quo, where for me, extraordinary is just anything at all slightly off the scale, right? So like if your standard day is, spending time with your kids and working and having calls, et cetera, and then one day you go to Disney, that's probably an extraordinary day, right? But you might identify that if you only go to a movie once a month, that itself could be an extraordinary day. I would say most people would probably consider Disney to be extraordinary. And some people would say going to a movie is just going to a movie. But that's why, for me, the power of intention is really important based off of anything that's out of the ordinary or extraordinary for me is really where I'm getting clear intention on. So like events, doing a special podcast, having a unique interview, going to like a specific type of date, having some sort of celebration. Those are the times that I'm very intentional. In terms of how I would want to use it by the day would be daily journaling. I used to do that. I don't do it as much anymore. Mostly because, like I said, I'm just imperfect. It's not like I have a perfect OS. I kind of get sick and tired of listening to people on podcasts explaining that everything they do with 100% consistency. I find that to be completely outlandish or dishonest, or I'm missing something altogether. So
I'm the same way. I'm like,
I don't want it to seem like I'm doing it perfectly every day. The things that I do really well is when I know that something will be out of the ordinary. So for example, I'm speaking at an event at the end of this month. Like I have very clear intentions of what I want to get out of that event through journaling experience so that I can make sure I get that after the fact. People often have experiences and then they find themselves disappointed with that said experience because they didn't journal on it. And they might seem or think that it's counterintuitive to journal or experience intention about it prior because they're worried that they've set their bar too high. But actually the benefit is if you set the bar too high and then you don't hit what your bar was, but then you're still satisfied anyways, you'll actually realize and learn for yourself that you don't have to set the bar higher than it is. And this is something I do a lot with mentorship and coaching in my company, Prospecting on Demand. We'll have people come to us and we'll ask them their revenue and profit goals. And on average, you'll get someone say like $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 or so a month or week or whatever it might be, right? And we'll then ask them why. And the why question is so constantly confusing to them. And I'm trying to pre-frame for them. Well, it's the idea is if you don't know what you're doing it for, you're not going to put in the work for it. And so then they do a journal and they write down all the things that they want and they realize, oh, I only needed half of that money, right? There's so much value to that. So I'm a big believer in intention, but I'm also a big believer in understanding that you're not going to be intentional every single moment of every single day. And this is coming from someone that is big on anti-hustle, that does speeches at Harvard or Columbia or at the event that I'm going to at the end of the month for the power of intention, because I'm a human being. And sometimes I get lost in the tidal wave of being a human being. And other times I'm very intentional. But I always find that being really intentional is much more beneficial.
I appreciate your authenticity with that because you're right. I'm the same way. I mean, it's funny. Sometimes I'll go back and hear some of my shows. And I'm like, oh, James, that was really good. You should try that. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
I'm already talking about it. I'm like, oh, crap.
What is it?
So
the cobbler has the worst shoes. It's the classic line, you know, like the reason why I'm great at coaching it and teaching is because I'm going through it. It's the battle I have every single day. So especially after having heart surgery. So like, I'm totally with you. I'm in the battle with you. I'm not leading the charge. I'm not better than you. I think
exactly. Yeah. We were a leader, but we also the student as well, which is really good.
Absolutely.
Actually, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on my show today. If my viewers and listeners want to find out more information about you, to work with you, to learn more about prospecting on demand and all the other things you do, where would they find all this information online?
Yeah, the easiest place to find me is prospectingondemand.com. Has all my social links and everything where you can find us. Find me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or TikTok. We're on all the socials. You know the deal. But prospectingondemand.com will be the one source of truth for you where you can find all the links. Would love to see you or meet you in person at some point.
Wonderful. My viewers and listeners also know that they can't find this information any other place. Simply go to the show notes at jamesmillerlifeology.com and I'll link you with Alex Schlinsky and all of his social media and all of his content as well. Alex, thank you so much for being a fantastic guest on my show today.
Thanks so much, man.